into the pit. The dead possum still there. Oswald was looking out the passenger window at the gray furry corpse on the side of the road. Somehow, it looked even deader than it had yesterday. Last night's rain hasn't helped. Nothing looks deader than a dead possum, Oswald's dad said. Except this town, Oswald mumbled, looking at the boarded up storefronts and the display windows, which were displaying nothing but dust. What's that? Dad said. He was already wearing the stupid red vest that put him in where he worked at the deli corner at the snack space. Oswald wished he had to wait to put it on until after he dropped him off after school. This town, Oswald said louder this time. This town looks deader than a dead possum. His dad laughed. Well, I don't guess I can argue with that. 3 years ago, when Oswald was 7, there had actually been stuff to do here. A movie theater, game and card store, and an ice cream shop with amazing waffle cones. But then the mill had closed. The mill had basically been the reason the town existed. Oswald's dad had lost his job, and so had hundreds of other kids' moms and dads. Lots of families had moved away, including Oswald's best friend Ben, and his family. Oswald's family had stayed because his mom's job at the hospital was steady, and they didn't want to move far away from Grandma. So, Dad ended up with a part-time job at the snack space, which paid $5 an hour, less than he had made at the mill. And Oswald watched the town die. One business after another shut down, like the organs in a dead and dying body, because nobody had the money for movies or games or amazing waffle cones anymore. Are you excited for the last day of school? Dad asked. It was one of those questions adults always ask, like, how was your day? And, did you brush your teeth? Oswald shrugged. I guess, but home's boring too. When I was 10, I wasn't home in the summer until I got called in for dinner, Dad said. I rode my bike and played basketball and got into all kinds of trouble. Are you saying I should get into trouble? Oswald said. No, I was saying you should have fun. Dad pulled into the drop-off lane in front of Westbrook Elementary. Have fun. He made it sound so easy. Oswald walked through the school's double doors and ran smack into Dylan Cooper, the last person he wanted to see. Oswald was apparently the first person Daniel wanted to see, though, because his mouth spread into a wide grin. Daniel was a tallest kid in 5th grade, clearly enjoying looming over his victims. Well, if it isn't Oswald the Ocelot, he said, his grin spreading wirelessly wider. That one never gets old, does it? Oswald walked past Dylan and was relieved when his tormentor chose not to follow him. When Oswald and his 5th grade classmates were preschoolers, there was a cartoon on one of the little kids' channels about a big pink ocelot named Oswald. As a result, Dylan and his friends had started calling him Oswald the Ocelot on the first day of kindergarten and had never stopped. Dylan was the kind of kid who picked on something and that made you different. If it hadn't been for Oswald's name, it would have been his freckles or his cowlick. The name-calling had gotten even worse this year. In U.S. history, when they learned that the man who shot JFK was Lee Harvey Oswald, Oswald would rather have been an ocelot than an assassin. Since it was the last day of school, there was no attempt at doing any kind of real work. Miss McCharm had announced the day before that students were allowed to bring their electronics as long as they took responsibility for anything getting lost or broken. This announcement meant that no effort would be made towards any educational activities of any kind. Oswald didn't have any modern electronics. True, there was one laptop at home, but the whole family shared it and he wasn't allowed to bring it to school. He had a phone, but it was the saddest, most out-of-date model imaginable. He didn't want to take it out of his pocket because he knew kids would sell it and make fun of how pathetic it was. So, while other kids played games on their tablets and handheld consoles, Oswald sat. After just sitting became intolerable, he took out a notebook and pencil and started to draw. He wasn't the best artist in the world, but he could draw. Well, enough that his image was identical, and there was a certain cartoony quality about his drawings that he liked. The best thing about drawing, though, was that he could get lost in it. It was like he fell into the paper and became part of the scene he was creating. It was a welcome escape. He didn't know why, but lately he had been drawing mechanical animals, bears, bunnies, and birds. He imagined them being human-sized and moving with the jerkiness and robots in one of the old science fiction movies. They were furry on the outside, but furry covered a hard metal skeleton filled with gears and circuitry. Sometimes he drew the animals' exposed metal skeletons or scratched them with the fur peeling back to show some of the mechanical workings underneath. It was a creepy effort, like seeing a person's skull peering out from beneath the skin. Oswald was so immersed in his drawing that when he was startled when Miss McCharm turned off the lights to show a movie, movies always seem like a teacher's final act of description of the day before break. A way to keep the kids quiet and relevant. Still, for an hour and a half before setting them loose to the summer, the movie Miss Charm chose was, in Oswald's opinion, too babyish for a room full of fifth graders. It was about a farm with talking animals, and he had to watch it before, but he watched it again because really, what else could he have to do? At recess, kids stood around tossing a ball back and forth and talking about what they're going to do over the summer. I'm going to football camp. I'm going to basketball camp. I'm going to go hang out with my neighborhood pool. I'm going to stay with my grandparents in Florida. Oswald sat on the bench and listened. For him, there would be no camps, no pools, memberships, or trips, because there was no money. And he drew pictures, play his old games that he had already beaten 1,000 times, and maybe go to the library. If Ben was still here, it would be different. Even if they were just doing the same old stuff, they'd be doing it together. And Ben could always make Oswald laugh, riffing on game characters or doing a perfect impersonation of one of their teachers. He and Ben had fun no matter what they did. But now was a summer without Ben. Yawned before him, wide and empty. Most days, Oswald's mom worked from 12 p.m. until 12 a.m., so his dad had to make dinner. Usually, they got by on frozen meals like lasagna or chicken pot pie, or on cold cuts and potato salad from the snack space deli that were still good enough to eat but not good enough to sell. When Dad did cook, it usually a thing that just required boiling water. While Dad got their dinner ready, Oswald's job was to feed Jinx, their very spoiled black cat. Oswald often thought that he used about the same amount of cooking skill in opening Jinx's can of stinky cat food at his dad's use in the dinner preparations. Tonight, Oswald and Dad were sitting down to plates of blue box mac and cheese and some canned corn his dad had zapped in the microwave. It was very yellow meal. You know, I was thinking, Dad squirted ketchup on his mac and cheese. Why did he do that? Oswald wondered. I know you're old enough to stay home, but by yourself, but I didn't like the idea of you staying by yourself the whole day while your mom and I are at work. I was thinking that you could ride into town with me in the morning and I could drop you off at the library. You could read stuff, surf the net. Oswald couldn't let this one slide. Out of date could his dad be? Nobody says surf the net anymore, Dad. They do now, because I just said it. Dad forked up some macaroni. Anyway, I thought that you could hang out in the library in the morning. When you get hungry, you could go over to Jeff's Pizzas for a slice and a soda. And I can pick you up from there once my shift is over in 3. Oswald considered for a moment. Jeff's Pizzas was kind of weird. It wasn't dirty exactly, but it was ran down. The vinyl on the booth seats had been repaired with duct tape, and plastic letters fell off the menu board around the corner. So the list of toppings included pepperoni and hamburger. It was clear that Jeff's Pizza used to be something bigger and better than it was now. There was tons of unused floor space and lots of unused electrical outlets along the base of the walls. Also, out of the far wall was a small stage, even though there was no performances there. Not even so much as a karaoke night. It was a strange place, sad and not what it had once been like the rest of the town. That being said, the pizza was decent, and more important, it was the only pizza in town, if you didn't count the kind of frozen food department at the snack space. The few good restaurants in town include Gino's Pizza or Marco's Pizza, which, unlike Jeff's, had actual pizza makers' names, and had closed their doors not long after the mill had. So, you'll give me money for pizza? Oswald asked. Since Dad's job loss, Oswald's allowance was dwindling to pathetically nothing. Dad smiled. A kind of smile, it seemed to Oswald.